was born the 13th of October 1945, which was just after the war. Unlike June, I lived as a young child in Collingwood House. I can remember our playground was the bomb sites. So we used to light fires and God only knows what and climb in all the bombed houses, often injuring myself. My early childhood, my mum and dad were both members of Bethnal Green Labour Party. My father became a councillor and I spent lots of my time delivering envelopes through people's doors, and we used to run a football thing. I used to go and get all the results, and I was more involved with my mum and dad on the politics side. And it was quite interesting in our house. We always had different people coming in, MPs, local mayors, and there was always people phoning up asking for help. Very interesting times. My dad was the local councillor, and I'm afraid in those times the women just made the tea. Things have certainly come a long way from there. They did have a few lady councillors, but we just thought that was our role in life, was making the tea and helping to raise funds. But things changed. I mean, when my dad sadly passed away, he was the mayor, and a few years later he passed away in 1972, and my mum went on to the council on his seat. She took over his seat, so she was a councillor in her own right. So life has always been very interesting, and I've always been very interested in politics because of it. He was the second mayor of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. Before that, it was Bethnal Green, Stepney and Poplar, and they amalgamated and became the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. There was a few people on our estate. There was 3 people actually who became the mayor. So we had 3 local councillors, and they all eventually become mayor. There was different times then because it was after the war, and there was lots of bombed property. There was a lot of new housing being built. There was a lot to do. And my dad and my mum always volunteered for everything. They ran an old people's club. They was on the League of Friends. They was on the local tenants. It was just all, I was always just brought up volunteering and doing things. When my mum was younger, like everybody else where we lived, we wasn't poorer than anybody else. And she lost her father very early. So her mum found it very hard. Her children went out. I think my mum was 13 or 14 when she left school. So you had to just get on and make it. She's always had it hard, and we always had food. We never went hungry. And my brother used to go out and do bobber jobs and give it to my mum. But we never felt like we didn't have anything then. But looking back, we didn't really. And you could always bring your friends home, and she would always make them something. She always managed to make the most of her lot without creating a fuss. You could always go, even now, she would want to know what we give you to eat. You know, if someone comes in your house, they've got to have a cup of tea and a biscuit. You stay a bit longer, you've got to have a sandwich. And if you're even longer, you've got to have dinner. And that's what she was like. And that's what most people were like in the East End. Everybody helped each other. My mum is nearly 106. And I would say up till she was 80, she was still on a school board of governors, because they said, please stay on till I retire. The headmaster said, please stay on till I retire. So she always says that her hard work is what keeps you going. And she always, as I said, she always volunteered to do things, always helped to run a club. She used to go out shopping. She used to buy us all our shopping. And we used to buy it off her on the Saturday. And on a Saturday, as we got older, as we got married, she still used to cook dinner for us. She used to buy £3 of mince and God knows how many potatoes. And everybody used to come up there for Saturday dinner. And she carried that on till she was in her 90s. But she had a problem with her sight. So she stopped going out on her own, but she's been lucky. She's had a few good friends who used to take her out, make sure she was all right, but still managed to run an old people's club till she was over 100. And the man who ran that club, he still comes round, calls her the governor, because she remembers everything and it all had to go past her. And because, to be honest, she talked good sense to be. And then when she was just before she was, I think, about 90, she was fed up sitting at home, fed up of the four walls. So I said to her, Mum, why don't you join the local club? Why do I want to go with old people? She said. I said, Mum, just try it for 3 months if you don't like it. So she went there. On the first day she walked in, she bumped into a lady who she was at school with, Millie, and she hadn't seen her for years and years. I think she had seen her, but not for about 50 years. And that was it. They was inseparable, Millie. They was the same age. They both celebrated their 100th birthday together. So that was, till recently, she used to go, the Stepney Jewish Club, she used to go there. It's only when she was 102 and she fell. But we go there for her now. We go there. They want us there instead of Mummy. Not instead of Mummy, but because of Mummy. They always invite us to everything. So there again, that is a Jewish club doing what it should be doing at this late age with volunteers. I think it's called the Brenner and Beaumont Square together. But it's really the Brady for older people. Absolutely. When I think about it, the similarities is uncanny. People getting together. My mum's claim to fame was in 1936, October the 4th. She was very political at the time. She used to go to anti-fascist meetings in Aldgate East. There was a lot of anti-Semitism in the East End at the time. And there was a lot of communists and this anti-fascist movement. She used to go along, and this particular day was the day of the Battle of Cable Street, they call it. But it was when Oswald Mosley, who was always in the East End, intimidating, and he had like a black shirt organisation. They used to intimidate the Jewish people, smash their windows. They used to wear great big belts. My mum used to say they just intimidated them. So this particular day, they wanted to march through the Jewish part of the East End. So they was going to all meet up in Royal Mint Street. And this particular day, everybody had decided they wasn't going to allow it. They tried to stop it, but the police said no, it had to go ahead. I think the MP tried to stop it, but they wouldn't. They said no, it's got to go ahead. There were loads of police there. They wasn't there to help the protesters there. There was help there to make sure that the fascists could march. They was on police horses. And her and her friend decided to go down. And so she was a witness to that day. I think her friend's arm got cut. They went up to the hospital, had it treated and come back. And she walked up she saw them all standing there in Royal Mint Street. And she went, quick, let's go back to where we was. And they were shouting out, thou shalt not pass. They'd overturned lorries, and they was fighting with the police. The protesters were fighting with the police because they was using batons trying to get out the way, but they didn't. And in the end, in the afternoon, they called it off. But they reckon there was hundreds of thousands of people there. Yeah, there's lots of pictures about it. But my mum said after that, they all marched to Victoria Park. They was all shouting out, "They shall not pass." So she used to talk about it, about that day, because it was my dad's birthday. That's how we remembered the date. But it was only as the anniversary become 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, she got more and more, everybody wanted to interview her because there's not many people left who remember that day. Michael Portillo came round here, sat on this bench seat where I'm sitting now, and interviewed her in the garden, because he was on one of his journeys on the trains and he'd come to Whitechapel and he interviewed my mum. I think I must have started going to club. I was quite young. I was 6. I was old enough to walk from my school in Aldgate East. I walked down Old Montague Street and went to the club. And I used to go in Miss Green's class. I can remember that. I can remember having tea and toast and things like that. And I can remember doing some of the activities, but I can't remember how old I was. Perhaps when I was 9 or 10. My brother went to the boys' club and they needed somebody in the boys' club to do the girls' parts in the plays. So I became a film star. Now, I played all the girls' parts in the plays. We used to go in competitions. I was Queen Esther, and I can remember playing Alice Fitzwarren, and I preferred the boys' club to the girls' club. I was the only girl in the boys' club. When we used to put on the productions, we used to go to the girls' club on their main night where they used to have the shows and different things. And I don't know why I stopped going. I can't remember why I stopped going. But I did go to Skeet. I can remember going to Skeet when my sister was there. I remember going on the train. I can remember the bunk beds. I can remember going to Skeet when I was much older, as an adult, when we used to go as a family. We hired Skeet out for the weekend, and that was really good. We went there for a few years and we used to do sports. There was about 30 of us, I think. We used to do swimming there. They was great days. They was great days. But sadly, they sold Skeet off, or is run by different people now. One of the highlights I remember was one of the managers, he must have been quite well off, invited me back with his family and children to his house. Wasn't sure where it was, but he had a lovely garden and he had a hammock in the garden and he had apple trees. So I remember taking an apple and eating it in the hammock. But and he had a dishwasher and an au pair. That's what they're great memories. They did everything to help children if they could. But that was my memory. I also remember in the boys' club, Simon Klinger, who was training to be a doctor. He used to do the drama group. He stayed in my mind. He had a lot of patience with all the boys. Well, I was always brought up going places and doing anything. And up to recently, I used to carry on doing things like being part of helping out. My sister and I both were matrons in a motorbike display team. My daughter was in a band, so I went along and helped in the band. We was always belonging somewhere and helping with things. So that took over a few years of our life. So I like to think my daughter definitely has taken over by doing things and helping people. I think it's what you teach your children, what is taught to you in life, you pass on to your children. Absolute disgrace how money has been taken out of youth services. and spent on I don't know what, because you pay for it in the end. If these children haven't got anything to occupy themselves with, idle hands make, the saying, and it just keeps you out of trouble, keeps them out of trouble. If the people who helped us could come along and help the people, give them money and, more important, their time, and give them incentives to get on, because they've got to look up to these people and aspire to be like them. And money from governments helps them. I mean, you try to run something like an adventure playground today. They get money, but what they don't get money for is wages. Now, not many people can afford to volunteer something like an adventure playground. So that whole time they're trying to raise money for equipment from different charities. But if only they could get funded for their salaries, there could be more things like that. People on the ground helping people. But somehow they seem to spend it on other things. What do they invest? Nothing. They don't invest anything. It's taken away. They did, but it's been taken away.